So there's been a lot of talk about AI. It's 2024, surprise. But lately, the talk in the industry and in the popular press even has been about AI PCs. So I am here to quickly go over what is an AI PC and what could possibly go wrong. So let's dive in. What is an AI PC? If I can get this to work. All right. So we have actually had AI hardware in PCs for a long time. Apple actually added the first tensor cores to the A11, which came out in the iPhone 13 or 12 era, something like that. Every Apple Silicon machine, all of the M series machines have had specific matrix multiplication acceleration, neural processing units, GPUs. On the PC side, Intel has been adding things like AVX to their x86 instruction set for a long time, and those are being used in AI. Obviously, AMD has incredible graphics. NVIDIA has incredible graphics. Intel now has incredible graphics capabilities too, and those GPUs can be used to accelerate AI instructions. An AI PC can't just be a question of hardware because we've had the hardware and we haven't had AI PCs. So what is an AI PC? It's hardware plus software. The idea is that a PC, a machine, a computer that you use, however you want to define a PC, the idea is that that PC would be able to run AI accelerated tasks locally for you as part of your regular everyday use of that machine. This, I think, is the incredible possibility. It has the potential to be really a revolutionary thing because as people are starting to use various AI tools, now obviously ChatGPT is the famous one that everybody talks about, but there are a lot of other things that people can do with AI besides just having a chatbot to interact with. If all of those things can be done more locally, then that could be a spark to a new wave of customer demand to buy PCs. It could enable people to do things they couldn't do before. It really could be a positive move for the industry. So let's talk a little bit about it. So first off, hardware matters. You can't have an AI PC that doesn't have the hardware that supports AI. So this is just table stakes. You have to have a CPU that can perform high performance math operations. You have to have, well, you should probably have a neural processing unit, which is sort of an accelerator that usually sits on the same die as the CPU. Sometimes it's part of the same chip, but it really operates independently. Most CPUs today are multi-core. In those cores, many of them have accelerator instructions like AVX, AMX on the Apple side, et cetera. Those exist in the cores. But many of these processors now have a special coprocessor, just like back in the day when, you know, the 386SX and the 386DX, you know, you had the math coprocessor. Well, now we've got a neural networking coprocessor as well, right there on the CPU as well, the NPU. I'm going to say that you don't necessarily need a discrete NPU in order to do AI processing, but most of the chips that are going to be used for these things are going to have a discrete NPU. A GPU as well. Obviously, you need something that can do graphics if it's a PC, but GPUs, as we've seen, have proven very, very capable because they can do a lot of parallel processing, and a lot of that time, that parallel processing can be repurposed to do machine learning related tasks or other AI tasks. But you also need more than that. You need a lot of memory and a lot of memory bandwidth. Today, most PCs use what's called a system on chip, where all of the majority of the components actually share the same package. Looks like a chip. You could hold it up and say, yeah, that's a chip. It's usually not a chip anymore. It's usually what's called chiplets or an SoC, where there's multiple chips, multiple silicon chips that are all nestled in real close together with various interconnect capabilities. And increasingly, that's the direction we're headed. And increasingly as well, we're having memory joining on that chip. That's what Apple has done. That's what most of the mobile processors have done. That's what most of the AI processors are doing, or at least going in the direction of that. Now, we don't necessarily have that. That's not necessarily a requirement, but what we do need is a lot of memory and a lot of high bandwidth between that memory and the CPU, because AI uses a lot of random access data. So we need to have memory as well as part of this picture. We also need connectivity, because most AI PCs are going to overflow work from the local device to the cloud. This is because there's going to be use cases where the local device may not be able to handle the workload, or because the local PC may need access to data that exists beyond the PC itself. So for example, if you query it and it needs to hit a database on the internet, or it needs to look something up in your calendar or look something up in a business application, it's going to need that kind of always-on connectivity. And I think that this is going to be one of the hallmarks of AI PCs as well. And finally, of course, you're going to need a lot of storage and a lot of high bandwidth, high performance storage. Luckily, all of these things are coming together now, and so we're going to have PCs that handle this kind of workload very, very soon. We also have to have software. Apple has had all of the hardware I've mentioned for years, and yet Apple doesn't have an AI PC. Why? It's the software. We fully expect Apple to change this situation at WWDC next month, but will they? Who knows? I mean, and will it be compelling? Will it be what we need for an AI PC? Who knows? Microsoft added a lot of these things to their Windows operating system and announced it this month to make what they're calling Copilot Plus AI PCs. It has full integration of data sets. It has AI-powered assistance. It can do a lot of different things in order to make AI happen on the PC. Now, some of the Microsoft system features that they've announced have gotten some rough reception, let's say. For example, they have a system that literally watches and records everything you do on your PC. And isn't that wonderful, so that you can ask your AI assistant, what was that website I was looking at last week where there was a really funny picture of a cat that was jumping on a dog, right? Well, it could go back and find that, and it would expose the URL, and you'd be able to find that. That's great, that's wonderful. And yet some people, I don't know why they would say this, but some people said, hey, I kind of don't want AI to be literally watching everything I see and do on the PC. Maybe that's a privacy violation, right? In fact, I would say that the early announcements of AI-driven AI PC features have been incredibly tone deaf in the way that they're presenting these things and the value to people and the concerns over customer privacy and things like that, especially in the business world. I mean, do you really want the AI to be recording all of your keystrokes? You really want it to be seeing all of the PII that might come up on your desktop if you're a customer service agent, or if you are in finance or something like that? There's a lot of concern about what these things are going to look like, but that's just a demonstration of the capability of the AI PC. I think what a lot of people missed in that is that that's one optional feature, and maybe it was a tone deaf feature, but what Microsoft was trying to say is that all of these AI features are going to be integrated all the way throughout Windows in many ways, and they're going to be exposed to third-party applications. And it's going to give PCs, the combination of hardware and software is going to give PCs really kind of a next level of capability that they just have never had before. So AI PCs are coming. Copilot Plus PCs are being launched by every major OEM. One of the interesting factors, though, is that all of the Copilot Plus PCs that were announced use Qualcomm's Snapdragon X Pro or Elite processors. Not Intel, not AMD. Now, Intel and AMD were part of that announcement, but every one of those Copilot Plus PCs use the Qualcomm Snapdragon ARM processor. And that is an incredible processor. I'm going to include a link at the end of this to an incredible lab test that our Signal 65 did, where they went and they checked the performance of this Qualcomm CPU. And it is absolutely right up there with anything that Apple has. And that is really remarkable, considering that we're talking about a PC that can deliver the same kind of performance and the same kind of battery life that Apple's been able to enjoy. So it is really a great product. I'm really excited about it. But as I said, Apple has already had this. I'm looking at the table here. I mean, I'm looking at my own machine. Anyone who's bought an Apple Silicon Mac already has a machine that has AMX instructions, that has a tensor core that has a high performance GPU. The M4 that just came out in the iPad Pro shows just how much Apple has kind of moved the ball forward, and it is very, very impressive. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that anything Apple's going to announce at WWDC will run on every Apple Silicon machine, because the M1 to the M4 is a big improvement in processor performance, and it's a big improvement in tensor core performance, probably. But it's probably not so big that it would mean that things won't run without it. I think that whatever Apple announces in Mac OS is going to work in every version of the Mac that we've seen so far with Apple Silicon. So that gives us basically two species of AI PCs: Microsoft's Copilot Plus PCs and Apple's Macs. And I think that there's going to be more too. So these things are coming. And I want to say too that Intel and AMD are not asleep at the wheel. Absolutely not. Although they haven't yet officially announced all these things, there's been so many leaks and so much information in the press that I think we can safely say that Intel's Lunar Lake and AMD's Strix Point are going to deliver AI PC functionality as well. And especially in use cases that don't demand the battery life and lower power consumption of the Snapdragon X. I think that we're going to see desktop AI PCs with Intel, with AMD, and I think those things are going to be really incredible. The numbers that we're hearing about from Lunar Lake and Strix Point suggest that these things are going to be even faster than anything we've seen from Apple or from Qualcomm. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to be even faster and lower battery power and less heat requirement, but on a desktop, that's not as much of a problem, right? And so I think that Intel and AMD are going to be right there with competing products as well, and that the Copilot Plus desktop is going to be a lot different than the Copilot Plus laptop and portable market. So these things are coming, kind of whether we want it or not. But that doesn't mean that it's going to work. Now, the OEMs, you hear Dell talking at Dell Tech World, for example, and one of the things that Dell said at Dell Tech World about AI PCs is that they're hoping that this will spark what they called a super cycle of buying. What happened is during the COVID pandemic, people bought a lot of PCs. They bought a lot of Macs, they bought a lot of PCs, they bought a lot of laptops, and then all that kind of fell off. And buying is down. Businesses, the upgrade cycle has been elongated. People are not buying right now. What the PC OEMs are hoping for, and what Dell is basically promising here, and others, of course, everybody's going to be doing these. Every major PC OEM has announced a Copilot Plus laptop. And what they're hoping for is that this is going to be a compelling enough event that businesses are going to go out there and refresh all the machines in their fleet. Because I say it right now, the PC that people have, the non-Mac PC that people have, will not run AI features. And the PCs that they're going to buy will run these. And if these features are compelling, people will buy them. But that's assuming these features are compelling. Who knows if they're going to be? Because we have to be concerned about things like battery life. We have to be concerned about whether the features that are going to be delivered in a Copilot Plus PC or a Mac are going to be the things that people want to use. The thing is, people are already using AI features, and they're using them in the cloud. Do I want those things on my desktop? Is that going to make me go out and spend money on hardware, or am I just going to use some cloud system? Do consumers even want it? Are consumers going to have a knee-jerk reaction to AI PCs and say, ugh, I don't want AI. I don't want to go buy AI. Well, we'll see. I think that my prediction, I guess, as an analyst is I think businesses are going to embrace the Windows Copilot Plus AI PC. I think they're going to buy a huge number of them, and I think that this is going to be a banner year for the PC OEMs because these products are so good. And I'm going to go further and say, on the PC laptop front, the Qualcomm Snapdragon X laptops are going to be so compelling in terms of performance battery life, form factor, et cetera, that even if people don't use the AI features, they're still going to buy those machines because they're that much better than anything that consumers, business users have been able to buy unless they went and bought a Mac. Because the MacBooks are that much better. I mean, I went out and bought an Apple Silicon MacBook, and it was that much better than my Intel MacBook in everything that matters. And again, I look around at my friends, I look around at the industry, I see so many people buying MacBooks, and they love them for the performance and for the weight and for the heat and for those things. PCs are going to have that in another month or two. Why wouldn't people go and buy new PCs? So I just think that the laptop world is absolutely going to explode on the PC side, on the Windows side. Whether the AI features catch on or not. And I think that businesses are going to bet that the AI features are going to catch on as well. And so they'll be a big hit. But that being said, I'm not sure about consumer because I think there's a dark horse waiting in the room here. And the dark horse is mobile. Most consumers don't use PCs on a daily basis. Most people don't use PCs at all. I'd say the clear majority of people on the face of the planet never use a laptop or a desktop ever. And I would say that of those that do, most of them don't use them as much as they use their mobile device, their phone. And that, to me, I think is the ultimate dark horse in the AI PC space, because mobile devices already use the same technology that we've been talking about this entire time. Every iPhone and every Android phone has an ARM CPU. Most are Android phones, and every iPhone has an NPU. They all have GPUs. They all have memory on the chip. They all have high-performance storage. They all have operating systems that are deeply integrated with that hardware. And increasingly, Google has already announced the next version of Android is going to have all sorts of phenomenal, we'll see how much consumers embrace them, but all sorts of phenomenal features, right? If you watch the ad for the latest Android phone, the latest Google phone, all the things they show are AI-powered features. That's going to be the same in my prediction. That's going to be the same for iOS. That's what we're going to hear at WWDC. We're going to see Apple rolling out a ton of compelling, consumer-friendly AI-powered features. I think that this is going to make the AI PC, it's going to blunt the impact in the consumer space because consumers are increasingly going to abandon PCs in favor of mobile, and mobile is going to have these things. And then we've got the question of wearables. Many of us have seen these AI pins that have been announced, like the rabbit and the human. Well, they're maybe not that good, but, think about the Apple Watch or the, Android equivalents. Think about the other form factors that can come, and think about the value of AI on a wearable device. Humane's AI pin may not be that compelling as a product, but the idea is incredible. What if we dispense with the conventional user interface paradigms and have an AI-powered assistant that does things based on the environment that we have with us all the time? I think, again, that is probably a phone, but could also be a phone plus other wearables. And that ultimately could be the thing that makes the AI PC revolution not as revolutionary as we think. So I do urge you to do your own research. Go to Signal65/New Surface Laptop and see their performance. If you're sitting here saying there's just no way that Qualcomm is beating Apple, I don't know if they're beating Apple, but they have an incredible product there, and I think that it's going to see just incredible use in the business space. Look at some of the coverage out there about Microsoft Copilot, and watch Apple WWDC to see what Apple announces here in a couple of weeks, because I think that the AI PC is coming, whether we want it or not.